Who is that? Where am I, goddammit? Tamara hollered as she grabbed hold and rattled what felt like thin metal bars all around her. What the fuck? Hey, I can hear you breathing, asshole. She paused to spit the lingering puke from her mouth. Shit, what is that awful smell? It would appear that you need to be crated just a little bit longer, my little bunny. No worries, though. We have got a long time to become friends. Do you know that the average rabbit or lagomorph lives up to 12 years? The familiar voice continued. Now don't try to run away, my little bunny, while I fetch you some water. Tamara seized the moment and tried to figure out what her next move was going to be. Her eyes were still irritated and swollen from the pesticides. She thought it was a good time to assess the damage to her body. Her hands still ached from the numerous cuts and abrasions. It felt as if some fingers may have been broken as well. Yet it all seemed a mild nuisance compared to the throbbing pain generating from her right leg. Tamara ran her good fingers gently over her stomach, then around her waist and down her left leg. Everything seemed to be in its proper socket and joints. She continued with her self-exam and started down her right leg. What happened next made her cage shiver with fear. The caged girl glided her fingers down the right thigh to the knee. Then she continued down to the ankle. Suddenly, the moist metal floor of the cage met with her fingertips. Her foot was gone, and in its place a bloody bandaged stump. Her ear-splitting screams were so earth-shattering that it shook the Cotton's NASCAR plate collection clear off the shelf of their kitchen hutch. "Were you looking for this, my little bunny?" Peter asked. He pulled away the black tarp that covered the make-do prison cell, and the sudden flash of light caused Tamara's eyes to tear and her pupils dilate to accommodate the dimly lit basement. She could see the hazy silhouette of her captor for the first time. Peter revealed an old, greasy bicycle chain from behind his Abercrombie hoodie that had been slipped through her bloody appendage. Like a magician unveiling his greatest illusion, he proudly remarked, "Do you like my very special charm, Tamara?" "How the hell do you know my name, you creep?" Tamara screamed. She was consumed with a great deal of unvented anger. She lunged at the cage door and realized there was not enough room to stand. The bandages covering the dismembered foot caught themselves on a rusty screw protruding through the metal floor. For the first time since her captivity, Tamara was able to see the butcher job that had been performed against her will. There were tiny splinters of her tibia bone piercing through the cauterized stump. The stitches that seamed the obscenity together were done with some thin wire and a common fishing hook which still swung from the final incision. The beautiful young girl on her way to her first high school dance had within hours become nothing more than her own caged and wounded animal to a psychotic and twisted juvenile serial killer. "Somebody help me!" she cried. Tamara knew in her gut that her pleas would more than likely go unanswered. "What have you done, Peter?" someone questioned in a dying voice. "You mind your own business, douchebag." Peter retaliated by slamming his precious bunny charm against the cage. He turned back to Tamara. "Sorry, my little bunny, but some of my rabbits have to be taught proper etiquette. I've always said, do not speak until spoken to." Peter reached for a pair of gardening shears hanging on the far wall before disappearing behind a curtain that separated the rooms. Tamara surveyed her surroundings, looking for a way to escape. There seemed to be no visible windows, but the curtain divider kept blowing from a slight breeze that would occasionally pass through. The cage seemed to be sitting on top of an old freezer that had been turned on its side. She pulled her body closer to the edge. Below her, on the muddy and damp basement floor, were many different breeds of rabbits. There appeared to be hundreds of them: white rabbits, black rabbits, wild rabbits, cottontail rabbits, and even cute little bunnies. Scattered amongst the jumping animals were skeletons and rotting carcasses of the less fortunate Leporidae, now serving as food for the cannibalistic survivors. Tamara reached for her mouth when a second wave started to erupt in her gut. "Peter, no, please." The voice belonged to a woman, and she was crying. It sounded like someone else was being held captive in another cage. "I told you to shut your trap, but you don't listen," Peter screamed. He opened the corroding lock on the cage door. "Now I'm going to have to show a little tough love on you, bunny." He pulled the steel shears from his apron. Tamara could hear the violent assault taking place. She desperately wanted to help the woman fight off the unwelcome monster. "Who are you?" She paused. "Why is he doing this to us?" "Hello?" Tamara, with her mouth open, was about to scream her next question when the blowing curtain stopped, and so did the screams. She heard a familiar sound of metal against metal and feared the worst. "No," she whimpered. The sudden buzz of a table saw brought Tamara back to her senses. The killer continued to yell over the noise. "You see, Tamara, I am not the monster everyone thinks I am. I don't want you to be afraid of me." He was cutting something. Some of the rabbits were chewing on some white powdery debris accumulating on the ground below the table saw. It was some kind of plastic shavings, like PVC. "I am a victim, too. I've suffered at the hand of my parents since I was a child. This year, I decided to take matters into my own hands." Peter lifted his bloody palms to his face and suddenly lost his train of thought. "Are you hungry, my little bunnies? Of course you are." He threw the tongue of the silenced prisoner to the ground. The stronger animals trampled the weak for a taste of the fresh carnage. "Where do I fit into this whole fucked-up freak show, Peter?" asked Tamara. He appeared from behind the curtain with a finished product in his grasp. "It's really quite simple, yet probably hard for you to understand." He started to cough from the debris still in his lungs, then continued. "My parents gave me the best of everything, the best schools, best toys, best clothes, and it all meant shit to me because the only thing they couldn't give me, the one thing I desired—" Peter's mood turned somber. "I suffer from a severe allergy to the cocoa bean, so severe, in fact, that the slightest contact could kill me." He held the PVC in view of Tamara's cage. "Do these look like rabbit's teeth to you?" he asked. The narrow piping had been cut and shaped to resemble two large incisors. The opposite end had been hewn to a very sharp point. "My parents, in their attempt to protect me, succeeded in creating the killer you see before you." More screaming, more cages shaking, this time more violent. "It appears someone is up from their nap. Excuse me, my little bunny." Peter smiled and pulled back the curtain to reveal his parents, in cages, resting on top of a large wooden table. Tamara screamed. "Don't be frightened, my little bunny. There is someone I would like you to meet." He stood beside the first cage, wearing a devilish grin, and continued to speak. "This is Jackie, my mother." Peter relatched the stainless steel lock. "How is my pregnant and plump jackrabbit today?" Jackie Cotton could not answer. A stream of blood was flowing from where her tongue used to be. Her piercing blue eyes had recessed down to their sockets, and her fitness-sculptured body seemed frail and weak. Tamara knew there was no possibility that the fetus inside of her could still be alive. Her head had also been shaved bald, and there were obscenities written in black marker all over her naked torso. She had some sort of mucus and ooze seeping from an untreated infection on her left hip. "And this piece of shit over here is my father, Roger." Peter shook the cage with all his strength. "What's going on, Roger Rabbit?" He laughed. "Let's take a look at those wrists, shall we?" Roger had both his wrists sticking through the bars. A pair of handcuffs kept them from moving. Oddly attached to each wrist were two potatoes wrapped in heavy twine. "I know what you're thinking. Man, is this guy crazy or what?" Roger appeared to be stronger and more alert than his dying wife. The cage was filled with carrots, both eaten and whole, and a bowl of water. It was as if Peter wanted to keep him alive for some greater purpose. Tamara noticed that his tongue had also been ripped out along with all of his teeth. She cringed when she came upon the deep hole where his ear used to be. It was stuffed with colored Easter grass, the kind you find in your basket beneath all the sweet confections. The colorful pocket was hidden behind what she could only decipher to be a white rabbit's floppy ear. It had been stapled to Roger's head. Peter took a firm hold of Roger's forearms. He untied the twine and removed the potatoes from his father's wrists. "You see, Tamara, in the old country of Ireland, when a citizen would commit a crime involving their hands, they would lose the use of those hands. Their wrists would be bound with rope and a sliced potato that had been soaked in a solution of vinegar and water. It was believed that the rotting potato combined with a person's body chemicals would slowly disintegrate the bone marrows just enough to make them pliable and weakened. Then the victim would be given the opportunity to publicly smash the criminal's wrist with a large metal spoon and watch as the wrist would shatter beyond repair." He opened a drawer underneath the table and pulled out a large metal pasta spoon. Roger frantically tried to pull his arms into the cage. "Stop wasting time, fucker. You brought this on yourself. Now I can watch you crawl on all four paws like the animal you are." Peter ignored his father's pleas, grabbed the left arm, and slammed the metal utensil down on the wrists. Roger began to lose consciousness. It was the second demolition to the other hand that did him in. "Holy crap, it worked," Peter said with a slight astonishment in his tone. He grabbed his father by his neck and pulled his face to his own. Tamara was now bearing witness to the grand finale. Peter caught and jammed the handcrafted PVC piping with the sharp-pointed tip facing upwards into his father's bloody gum line, lifted the floppy white ear, and whispered, "I told you that it would be only a matter of time before I would have myself a chocolate bunny." The end.